Yeah, at different points, you think back and you're like, man, that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool that I got to win a national championship in my home state, that I got to be a part of a WNBA championship in my home state, play professionally in my home state, and then be the head coach of my home franchise. That was really pretty cool.
You just heard a WNBA coach describing the key leaders in her locker room. Now, what if I told you that this exact quote was clipped, twisted, and used as the central piece of evidence to create a completely fake feud with rookie superstar Caitlin Clark? For weeks, you've been told this was proof of a snub, proof of a divided locker room, and proof of a coach who was actively working against her own #1 pick. Today, we're going to expose how that lie was manufactured. We're going to show you the full context, break down the coaching strategy they didn't want you to understand, and connect the dots to the bigger, more troubling game being played by certain media channels desperate for your clicks. This is the real story of the quote that launched 1,000 rumors. We're going deep on this one, so if you appreciate channels that filter out the noise and give you the real story, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It tells us we're on the right track. All right, let's get into it. The narrative that took over the internet was simple and devastatingly effective. The story went like this. In a press conference, Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White was asked to name her team's leaders. She named 3 veterans, and deliberately, with ice in her veins, left Caitlin Clark off the list. Instantly, the clip went viral. It was presented as the ultimate smoking gun. Commentators and content creators framed it as an act of disrespect. They claimed it proved the rumors of locker room jealousy were true. They painted a picture of a coach who was either clueless or worse, intentionally sidelining the very player who was selling out arenas and breaking viewership records for the league. The story was just too juicy to ignore. The old guard versus the new phenom, playing out right in front of the cameras. And this quote, this one single out-of-context quote, was Exhibit A. They presented it with rapid-fire editing, with no room to breathe or think. Just the accusation, followed by a dramatic pause, letting the implication hang in the air. That's a deliberate tactic. When you present information that fast, you're not trying to inform, you're trying to provoke an emotional reaction before critical thinking can kick in. They count on that initial shock to carry their entire narrative. But as narrative analysts, our job is to hit pause, rewind, and look for what's missing. And what was missing here was the context, the full question, and most importantly, the full answer. So let's do what they didn't. Let's pull back the curtain. The clip came from a standard press availability. The question wasn't a simple, "Who are your leaders?" It was a more nuanced question about the locker room voices and the players who are helping to steer the ship day to day. A question about team dynamics. Now, with that in mind, listen to Stephanie White's full, unedited answer one more time. Listen for the parts they conveniently left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, at different points, you think back and you're like, man, that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool that I got to win a national championship in my home state, that I got to be a part of a WNBA championship in my home state, play professionally in my home state, and then be the head coach of my home franchise. That was really pretty cool.
Now that you've heard the whole thing, does that sound like a petty snub? Or does it sound like a coach giving a detailed, thoughtful answer about the specific roles different veterans play in her locker room? Let me know in the comments right now, was this a deliberate shot at Clark or a calculated piece of media manipulation? I want to hear your take. Let's connect the dots here from a coaching perspective, because this is the story behind the story that they never wanted to discuss. This wasn't a snub, it was a strategy. When you have a generational talent like Caitlin Clark enter your locker room, a player who commands an incredible amount of media attention and defensive pressure, you don't just throw her the keys and hope for the best. That's how you burn a player out. A smart coach knows that the single most important factor for a rookie's success is the environment around them. You need to build a stable foundation. And how do you do that? You empower your veterans. You publicly praise the leaders who have been in the trenches, the players who understand the league, the travel, and the pressure. By calling out Sophie Cunningham's infectious energy and coach's mind, or Abby's high basketball IQ and perspective, White wasn't diminishing Clark, she was reinforcing the support system for Clark. She was sending a message to the entire team that the veteran core is responsible for maintaining the culture and to helping to guide the new talent. It's about creating a structure where a rookie, even a superstar, can learn, adapt, and ultimately thrive without having to carry the entire leadership burden from day one. And let's be honest, the channels that push this fake feud know this. But a nuanced conversation about coaching strategy doesn't get clicks. A manufactured catfight does. They counted on your reaction. They took a clip, stripped it of all context, and presented it in the most inflammatory way possible because they know it works. They banked on the idea that if they could just make you feel like Clark was being disrespected, you wouldn't stop to ask if it was actually true. It's a trick, and it's one of the oldest in the book. They create the controversy, and then they get to report on the controversy they themselves created. It's a perfect feedback loop for engagement. And this brings us to the most important dot to connect. This wasn't just about one channel or one video. This is a deliberate pattern. Our intelligence shows that certain creators are using a specific playbook. They run a high-engagement, low-credibility content strategy that intentionally exploits the emotions of WNBA fans with misinformation. The league is seeing an unprecedented growth, with social media views in the billions and attendance up nearly 50%. WNBA teams now lead all of professional sports in social media engagement. That massive new audience is a goldmine for creators who know that nothing drives clicks faster than controversy. So when we ask the question, who benefits from a fake feud between a coach and a star player, the answer is anyone who can monetize the outrage. They're not investigating a story, they're manufacturing a product. And the product is drama. They prey on the passions of the fan base and take advantage of the fact that in a fast-scrolling world, very few people get to see the full picture. So the real story here was never about a divided locker room or a disrespectful coach. It was about how a thoughtful, strategic comment was deliberately distorted and weaponized in the new, high-stakes WNBA media landscape. It shows that in the gold rush for attention surrounding players like Caitlin Clark, context is the first casualty, and the truth is often buried under an avalanche of clicks. They created a feud out of thin air because for them, a fake feud is more profitable than the real story. So what's your take on all this? We want to know what you think. Who gets hurt the most when these false narratives take over? The players, the coaches, or the fans who are being misled? Drop your opinion in the comments below. And if you believe in getting the full story and value this kind of deep dive analysis, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because we are committed to filtering out the noise for you every single time. Finally, if you think other fans need to see the truth behind this manufactured story, share this video and help us set the record straight.